my recovery story. Hopefully, it can help somebody out there that has gone through something similar or thinks they can't do it because of certain situations. But anyway, I was born in the Midwest United States in the early 70s, and I started school in the mid-70s. I was born to my parents. They back then in the 70s, parenting classes were not real common that I know of. We didn't have the internet, so there's a lot of parents out there. They know what they're doing. But my parents were young, and I forgive them. Both of them are very decent people today. They are not together anymore, but they both are very decent people. Now, but anyway, they had trouble parenting when I was young. And I remember my mother and father coming home and arguing because of I'm not going to mention which parent, but me and my younger sister having red marks on us. And I really could not do anything right. One parent was loving but had a temper, and the other one was going through their own situation. And really was not told anything except criticized. And anyway, throughout school, I did not fit in. I mean, I did not have friends. I remember one time somebody talked to me, and I was very happy saying, look, I told my mother that somebody tried to be my friend. And but even in like the early school, like second grade, first grade, I was very withdrawn. And then it was common, even starting from around, I guess, fourth grade, to have anger outbursts and flip over a desk. I'm very defensive with the teachers. I remember in fourth grade, the fourth grade teacher brought me to the school principal because I would never do my homework. Later I figured out why, but anyway, the fourth grade teacher brought me to the school principal, and he held me against the wall with his hands on my throat because I guess he just snapped, and I guess it was hard to deal with because I was very defensive. I was just a little kid, and I don't think he's a bad person, but he lost it and had me against the wall. I was a fourth grader, had his hands on my throat, and the teacher looked completely shocked. She did not say anything that I know of to me or anything, but she never brought me back in there again. And it was just for not doing my homework. But anyway, we moved to another town when I was 12 years old in the early 80s. And I was going to start new, and I had obsessive compulsive disorder, which today I've learned how to control it. And in fact, I've learned how to make it, in some ways, benefit me in my life. There's some ways it still affects me bad in my life, not really, but I've learned how to, to control it now. And but anyway, I would not do my homework because it was taking too long. I go through rituals, and it would take me hours and hours to do what somebody else could do in just a short time. But anyway, we switched schools, and I went to a different town and started sixth grade in a different town. And I had in my mind that I was going to do good, and I stayed up all night getting very little sleep. One of my parents was very critical and just said, "Well, it's not going to last long, and he'll be right back to where he was." But it came to the point, and I gave up after a period of time. And it came to the point where they put a desk in my room, and I was not allowed to leave the room until I finished the homework. Well, I didn't do it anyway. Sometimes I was able to get out of it, lie about my homework. Or in the summertime, I was able to go outside. I hung around with two kids that they were just as dysfunctional as I was. Had family problems. One had very severe family problems, and then another boy that I hung around with in the summer. But anyway, when I was in sixth grade during junior high school, it was a time when kids are the most cruelest. They're not the nicest people at that age, at the time of their brain development. And in order to be a cool person at that school, you had to hate me. That would make you cool, is to just torture me and hate me. And I didn't have really anywhere to go. I couldn't go home because one of my parents, that was the worst time of their life, and they were really having some serious issues. So I didn't have a break at home, and I didn't have a break at school. When I went to school, it was bad. When I went to home, it was bad. And one day, I was sitting in my room at the desk, and I'm doing my homework, and one of the punishments that they would do is well, you're not going to do your homework, we're going to add more to it. So they take up, now you got more to do, and they take up the encyclopedia, and I'd have to copy the page. One day they come in and check on me, and I'm not going to say which parent it was, and they just snapped and had a fiberglass rod and beat me black and blue. And, I did not get a lot of physical abuse, a lot of verbal abuse, but I remember when I was younger, like around 5 or 6, getting my parents arguing for having red marks on me, but this is the first time I had, like, actual bruises, and it was pretty severe. I'm not mad at them. Myself, I had left red marks on one of my daughters a few times, and I apologize for using the belt a little too hard. And it was a bad mistake, but my parents are decent today. But anyway, I got beat black and blue with a fiberglass rod. And when I went to school to undress for PE, I had blue stripes from my neck down to my ankles. And all the kids would come around when I was undressing. They're bringing other kids over to look at me, saying, "Wow, man, your mom and dad beat you bad." And they knew that something was wrong. they knew that there was something wrong, but they treated me like they hated me anyway. I remember one day in that same year, I was in the classroom, and my mind was I was just so out of it and so distraught and in so much stress that I just laid my head down on the desk. And the teacher thought I was sleeping, came up and slammed the book down on the desk, and I snapped, and I flipped the desk over, and I flipped over the shelf behind me. I took all the books, I flung them at him, and he went running out of the room with his hands over his head, saying he's crazy. And, I was weird. Yes, I was weird. I was going through a lot of hell. It stuck with me for years. There's still a hint, hint there, but it's nothing like it used to be. Thanks to recovery, in many ways. But anyway, I remember on the last day of that year, that was the most horrible year of my life, but I was we were at assembly on the last day of school, and the PE teacher came up to me, and nobody called me by my first name in junior high. They always called me by my last name. He came up to me and he said, so-and-so, the PE teacher came up to me and said, so-and-so, I'll kick your ass. I don't care if I go to jail. And I was a little scrawny 12-year-old boy, and he said that right in front of another student, And, nowadays, if something like that happened, it'd be on the news and everything else. I didn't say anything. I didn't really know what to do. But anyway, when I got into high school, it changed a little. People had grown up a little bit. They were not quite that mentality. There were still some mean, cruel people, but there were also people that were a little more mature. Some of the teachers were horrible, and some of them were not as bad. But most ones who are, to this day, I do not like sports. I don't like baseball, I don't like football, I don't like watching it. It's the most boring thing in the world to me. I guess because of my experiences in school. And in high school, the ones that were the biggest bullies were the ones in sports, in that particular case. In my particular case, anyway. But I fell into the drug culture really quick. All of a sudden, I have a bag of weed, and I got all these friends, And I remember going out into the woods and getting just as high as I possibly could on marijuana. And when I could get my hands on alcohol, I didn't drink a few beers. I got drunk, or binge drink. And I guess that started off, when I was about 16. I remember stealing alcohol when I was like 14, but it was hard to get my hands on it. But when I was around 17, it was a lot easier to get my hands on. And marijuana, I discovered marijuana. But anyway, I got expelled at age 17 for smoking marijuana at school. The school principal thought that I had, there was no problems with drugs in school until I came, but I was just, it was a very small school. There was just a lot going on his nose, and I'm not mad at him. He just did not know how to handle me. And I don't blame him, I was looking from the outside. I don't think I was how to handle me. But anyway, I got expelled from school. I ended up getting a GED like around age 19. But I hung around with people that were older than me. They introduced me, they were into shooting up meth. Introduced me to the needle for the first time. They were big meth users, and I really didn't like it, but I was hanging out with them, so I did it on a regular basis. As often as they were doing it. It just wasn't my drug. But they were doing really bad things, like breaking into businesses and breaking into houses, robbing houses. And one day I was going down the road with one of my friends, and I was driving in the car, and we got pulled over by an unmarked car. He just had the siren on the dashboard. And a plainclothes cop came out, he says, "You need to come with me." So, I didn't get as far or anything. I had to drive and follow him, and I followed him to the police station. And when I got there, they brought me in a room, and they said, there's been a white escort, a car. Their escorts were popular back then, but there's been a white car stolen. We have proof that you did it. We know you did it. And you're in very big trouble unless you start speaking and helping us out. And the truth is, I have never stolen a car in my life. I stole no car whatsoever. I did not break into houses with him. I didn't even do things like that. And I just did drugs with him. But they tried to force me to be an informant, and they were asking me things I didn't know. Because I knew what they were doing, but I didn't know the details. And anyway, back then in the late 80s, there were crews where teenagers would drive around in a circle. And that was very common in the United States in the late 80s in many cities. And the cops would often pull me over to the side and start talking to me, and I was trying to get out of it, but they were very persistent. And anyway, make a long story short, I got the snot beat out of me. One guy jumped in, and one guy was fighting me, and the other one grabbed me from behind and was punching me and kicking me. And my mother said, you need to get out of here before you get killed. And I kind of thought about it. I almost didn't go, but I did. It was to the southern United States. My uncle lived in the southern United States, the far south of the United States. And I got on a Greyhound bus with two black guys and headed to another state when I was very, very, very young. And I spent most of my life in that state. But anyway, when I got there, I did not do the meth anymore, but I did smoke marijuana. It was a lot cheaper there, and it was still binge drink. And my head was screwed. I was a very, very angry person. People thought I was going to snap. I've had people say, "Oh man, what are you thinking about? You look like you could kill someone." I was a very, me. And it was a very dysfunctional relationship. She was codependent on me, and I was very, not physically abusive, but just really out there, very, very dysfunctional. And she would carry around one drink and say, oh, I'm partying, just one drink. And it was always on my case if I was smoking too much marijuana. But anyway, we ended up having 2 children together. And one day, the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, after the first child was born, shortly after the first child was born, the best thing that ever happened to me in my life happened. And she had, at age 19, one of her family members introduced her to crack, and she just lost it, and she became a serious crack addict. So when this happened to us, the greatest thing that ever happened to my life, she was already into her addiction. But we had a big argument, and when the neighbors called the police came, and they also called Child Protective Services. And that was the end of an old chapter and the beginning of a new chapter. And I was ready. I was ready to let go of that horrible life. And I tried it, and I went to meetings. I got my papers signed and did everything I was supposed to do. And I got moments of relief, where I just felt relief, in freedom and in spirituality. And then it would come back, and we got our child back, and then we had a second child. And then my ex-wife relapsed, and then CPS came in, Clinical Child Protective Services, and they took both of them. But anyway, she did not make it, and I was doing my best to do what I was supposed to do, and she kind of fell into the streets. It was by a large city, and Child Protective Services decided to send my 2 daughters, they were babies at the time, up to the Midwest, where my mother was, where my mother could have rights over them. So I left at that state and went back up to the Midwest to be with my daughters, and they were babies. And I stayed up there for 4 years. I stayed sober and clean most of the time, and I was white knuckling it and really suffered. Even though they didn't have very many meetings up there, even though I was going to a few meetings, I was really suffering. I had tried religion, because I was raised in extremist religion, and before I went back to the Midwest when my daughters were babies, and also up there, I tried that religion, and it just didn't work out for me. And I'm not saying it wouldn't work out for somebody else, but it did not work out for me. And I was miserable, and my head was messed up, something took me a long time to come out. I didn't trust anyone. I don't want you to know me. I don't want you to talk to me, because I don't want bad things you're going to do. As again, I'm being very cool or something, because in the United States, I guess it's everywhere, but I know in the United States, a lot of people, the way they do their insecurities is to condemn somebody else. I call myself doing it myself. And anyway, I stayed sober, and most of the time I white knuckled it. I went back to court, got custody of my 2 daughters, and left and went back to the state that I came from in the far southern United States, where I spent the majority of my life. And I raised my daughter. I've been a single parent for years. I was very mentally unstable, but I always apologized to them. I always said, what I'm going through is not your fault. It has nothing to do with you. It's just the way I was raised, and I really did not quite comprehend what was wrong with me. And really, what was wrong with me is the effects of childhood trauma, from very severe childhood trauma. The anger outburst, the not trusting other people. In psychology and psychiatry, I'm not putting them down, but I personally believe it's very easy to be misdiagnosed, because you come in there and you get to see the doctor for maybe 15 minutes. He has to come up with a diagnosis very quick, or he doesn't get paid by the insurance company. And he sees you for another 30 days. And really, in a lot of cases, I don't think they have enough time to do what they need to do to have a proper diagnosis. Now, some things are very, very obvious. And I'm by no means a doctor, but I do, in my case, I know they misdiagnose me a lot of times. But anyway, I ended up raising my daughters, and when they were about 14, 15, I was in a lot of stress, and the neighbors just totally thought I was weird because my erratic behavior and being withdrawn. And there was beer bottles everywhere. The house always smelled like marijuana. Beer cans. It was mostly beer cans. House mostly smelled like marijuana. And I could not make it home drunk. Without drinking. And I by no means would work overtime at work if I could not. And I was already drinking on the way home. And my daughter, she said, look, Dad, you've got to do something. So this is crazy, but I'm not the one who's done this, but most people who have done this, they were doing cocaine or something like that. I was an alcoholic. But I had seen people on probation, and I thought, and I've seen them do well. Some don't, some just reject it, and some stay in there and do well. And I thought if I was on probation, it'd help me. So I walked down to the police station with a marijuana roach, and this is the mid-2000s, around the area, around 2009. And I called the cops and told them that I went to be on probation. I got the wrong cop. that really thought it was crazy, and she gave me a PI and lowered the charge to paraphernalia, and the judge said, I can't really do anything for you. Why she did that, maybe she was helping me, I have no idea. But it happened, and so what? But anyway, I just could not stop drinking. I went back to Alcoholics Anonymous again. I did everything I was supposed to do. I got a sponsor and suffered and suffered and suffered. And I was trying to do what I was supposed to do. And I only made it 2 months. I was sitting outside on the front porch, and one of my daughters said, one of my daughters, they go, look at you, Dad. Look at you. Just drink. Look at you. Look, and I only made it 2 months into drinking. And but anyway, a few years later, or not too much more later, maybe a year or two, and I'm in very severe desperation again. And I was an exceptional worker. And the company I worked for, they just kind of like put me in the background where nobody could see me because I was very good at what I did. But anyway, I was in severe desperation. I didn't know who I was praying to. I'd say the God that created everything. I was really I had become an agnostic. I really didn't have I had a resentment towards religion, and I just, out of desperation, I said, please help me. God, you created everything, or anybody, And I did that, and nothing happened. But I still continued out of severe desperation. And finally, this does not happen to everybody. I know of one other person that told me this happened to them. Well, in this particular case, the way it happened to me, it happened to me before I quit drinking. And this girl that talked about it, she said it happened to her before she quit using drugs. But yes, it happened to Bill Wilson. I don't know if it happened before he quit drinking or not. But there are different types of spiritual awakenings. And I think that we are dealt with in a way that we need. That's right for that particular person. But anyway, I had this spiritual experience that was unbelievably powerful. And before I quit drinking, I ended up going to one treatment center. I couldn't get in there because they didn't have any beds. I told them about it, and they said, well, it's called spiritual awakening, but you better do something about it, or it'll go away. And anyway, I ended up going to this other treatment, and it's by a large city. It was in a large city. And that's where my insurance would cover, and it was more of an upper class one. Not really upper class, but it was, I don't know. Anyway, something really crazy happened there, and I was there 2 weeks and got kicked out. And the only thing that happened was we were sitting in a group, and somebody said something, and it triggered something in my mind, and I ran outside and just started crying and crying and crying, and I walked down to another building, sat at the table, and it was just bawling my eyes out. And the counselor I had at the time, I didn't understand that guy. And I talked to other people about it, there's good and bad, and good apples and bad apples in every profession. And for me to see the bad apple, I don't know, but I don't think he dealt with me right. But I'll talk to other people about it later and say that's not right. But anyway, the only thing I did was I left the group and just went down to another building and sat at a table and just bawled my eyes out. And just because somebody said something that triggered something. But anyway, the counselor called the police. The police came, and they were going to put me in the psych ward. And I said, you cannot put me in the psych ward because I did not threaten anyone, and I'm not a threat to myself. I'm just crying. They called somebody else out that's more, I don't know what they do, but they're also like a mental health evaluator or something that works for the city. And they came out and they said, he's right, you cannot take him to the psych ward. And I got released. And I ended up going to an outpatient treatment, and I stayed sober anyway. And I want to go back before all this happened because I forgot to mention something. But during that 2 months when I was suffering and didn't make it, my daughter, she told me that, one of my daughters, the other daughter said, just stick it out, maybe it'll all end if you stick it out. But anyway, the story happened, I didn't make it. But anyway, going back over to there where I went to the outpatient treatment, during my first year, I was full of resentment. Our resentments are common with alcoholics, and I had a lot of resentments. But I felt pretty good. I'd be on the spiritual high, peak clouds, but every time a resentment would come, I'd have severe cravings. And that lasted about a year. And after about a year, the cravings went away. But one day I was sitting in the outpatient treatment, and I had a bad craving. And I sat down and I read Bill's story in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it went away. But I was pretty much, that spiritual high experience lasted for about 2 years. But anyway, it was sort of like doing LSD, like that spiritual high that lasted like 2 years, but I still had to grow up, I didn't know everything. I was not a know-it-all. I was just on a big cloud for like 2 years, and I had to grow up, but anyway, after my first year of sobriety, my daughter had bought a card for me, and I don't know where she got it from, and on the card it said, good things come to those who wait, and my daughter said, Dad, if you ever go back to that again, I just don't know what I would do. I don't know what I'd do if you ever go back to that again. And so I made it about 6 years making the meetings, and I had to get sponsored. And before, I never quite understood how the steps worked. But after that spiritual experience, I started to understand how the steps work. And I had a decent sponsor. And he really didn't quite understand me. I don't think he knew what to do with me because he didn't quite understand. Because I would have triggers. There would be things that would trigger me. I would become emotionally distraught. But I did, and at other times, at that particular time of my life, I would be on these spiritual highs. But I got a lot from him. He didn't understand me, but I got a hell of a lot from him. And even today, he's not my sponsor anymore. But I quote things that he told me. So for the next 6 years, I made meetings on a regular basis. Stayed sober, progressed over time. I still had trust issues. To this day, I still have some trust issues, but they're nothing like they used to be. And I had to grow. And I've had good times and bad times. During growing, sometimes me making a mistake, caused me to grow because I did not quite want to do things in a spiritual way. And that's one thing my sponsor told me, because when I got into sobriety, I was all into this, I have to protect myself. I have to keep control, and he said, just stop. He goes, I promise you, it may not seem like it, but I promise you that if you do everything in a spiritual way, you deal with everything in a spiritual way, and not try to control things and demand anything, things will work out for you. It may not seem like it, but I guarantee you they will. It took me a long time to get that. He brought on acceptance also. He brought that right up, by the way. But because he was a Bible thumper, I'm not into the Bible. I was towards religion. And he brought something up, by the way, but it happened to be on a religious tract. It was about acceptance. So I kind of rejected it. But acceptance was very important, just to accept it. The Serenity Prayer, not using it, reciting it, I'm not saying it's wrong, because all I can say is what worked for me. I'm not to work anybody else's program, but using it as a model. There's some things I have to accept, and if I can change it, then I have to live in the solution. And if I can't do anything about it, then I just have to accept it. And it's something that I did not get at first until later. But making mistakes, and suffering from those mistakes has helped me grow. About 2 years ago, I moved back to the Midwest to be with a girl who was somebody who I had dated when I was a teenager. I made a pretty serious mistake there. We're not doing real well right now. I hope that we resolve the issue and stay together. But I handled the situation totally wrong and didn't do it in a spiritual way. And one thing I didn't do is I did not call somebody in the program or call a sponsor. It's always good when I don't know if I feel like that I may not be able to control my emotions or I don't know what to do, that I talk to somebody who's seeing it from the outside. Because at the time, out of anger, I may feel that my perception is right, but it does not mean my perception is right. But anyway, I caused havoc. It had to do with one of her relatives, and I judged them very harshly, and for a selfish reason. And anyway, I hope we resolve this issue. But anyway, my daughters, they turned out pretty good. My youngest daughter, she was very angry when she was younger, and I expected her to just disappear and never hear from her again. But she contacts me all the time, and my daughters turned out well. We're very close to both of my daughters. We talk all the time. And they're not addicts or alcoholics, thank God. And one thing that helped, I think, a lot, even though they went through hell, or I embarrassed them, when they're younger, is that they grew up around around marijuana and alcohol. Have an alcoholic father. Is that I apologized to them all the time and did not make them think that it was their fault. That I let them know that it had nothing to do with them. It was me. The way I was raised for some things. As for in the 12-step programs, we are allowed to choose our own higher power. It's a spiritual program, but there is no religious doctrine. And we can have our own conception of a higher power. I particularly have spirit guides. In the United States, most people are Christian, and that's okay. We have to find out what works for us. And I started studying quantum physics, and I work crystals, and when I look at physics, I can see that how it is. It's not mythical or anything. How things that may seem miraculous are really possible through science. But I do see a higher power working in my life, and when I pray, I usually refer to spirit guides, and sometimes just say God. But I really don't get into organized religion too much. It's sort of like I can't see the wind, but I can feel it blowing my face. And after a period of time, it's the same way with a higher power. I cannot see it physically, but I can see what's happening in my life. And one thing that has helped me tremendously, and I think it was very important from the very start, and my sponsor had mentioned that to me, is step 10. In step 10, I have to keep looking at myself and keep an eye on myself to make sure, and keep making adjustments, to make sure that I'm staying on track. So I keep an eye on myself, and I keep making adjustments, and as I do it, I grow, and I get better and better, like learning a language, get better and better at it. And I do pretty good. I used to sit and cry in my yard all the time, have huge anger outbursts, that is nothing like it was. There's still a hint of the effects from childhood trauma, but it's nothing like it was, and I keep getting better and better, and I do still have some trust issues. It's nothing like it used to be, but when I go out into public, I like going out in public, and I'll be very friendly and talkative to strangers. But if I'm sitting in a group and I'm in a situation where I have while, but one thing is I cannot isolate. I cannot do that. Even if I connect with one or two people, have one or two friends, I have to connect with someone. I cannot isolate. It was very important, something I had to work on. But I wouldn't trade this life for anything, especially the old life. The old life was unbelievably horrible. I would not trade this life for anything. And when it comes to school shooters, I think it's horrible. When I see it on TV, I can't even stand to look at it. I just start turning it off every time I see a mass shooting on TV. But I understand what's going through their mind. Especially when I was in junior high school, I can understand what it would be like to be them, to feel that the whole world is evil and a tremendous amount of anger. But fortunately, I don't get into guns. I don't really like guns. It's just not my thing. But anyway, it's about progress. It's about progress. It's not about perfection. I will never, ever reach perfection. I will just keep growing. And sometimes making mistakes and suffering from those mistakes has pushed me into growth. So if I'm doing what I'm supposed to, things go better. If I get off track and I ignore living by